Welcome to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast series with U.S. Navy Special Operations veteran, CEO, and hockey fanatic Bob Pizzini. Bob discusses leadership, success, failure, defining moments, and hard lessons learned with guests who are intentional in their approach to leadership. Leadership is a perishable skill. Use it or lose it. In this series, entrepreneurs, industry executives, academics, public figures, and other highly effective professionals share their formulas for success with you.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Elevate Your Leadership podcast with me, your host, Bob Pizzini. Hopefully, you've listened to the podcast before, and if you have, you know that I love to have discussions with people who have not only brought great value to me at some point in my life, but these are people who I know will bring great value to you by simply listening to the discussion. Today's guest is a very unique guest, Dr. Johnny Garcia. I've known Johnny for many, many years. We met primarily through the business community here in Virginia Beach, Chamber of Commerce, and I've had the pleasure of interacting with Johnny over the years. I think I made a business connection for you a while back with Jessica, and so it's just wonderful to be part of this business community and to know the people and to know their stories and who they are and how they came to be so successful. And today's discussion is going to be fascinating because Johnny is such a successful businessman. All right, here we go. Johnny Garcia, Dr. Johnny Garcia, PhD and CEO. Inspired by his parents and grandparents and dedicated to a life of service for family, community, and the technology industry, Dr. Garcia is the founder and CEO of Simus, Inc., that's S-I-M, capital I-S, Incorporated, an owner and investor in numerous other businesses, I think Portsmouth Casino being one of them, can't wait to talk about that. He has become an innovation leader in the modeling and simulation and healthcare industries. He serves area youth through his robust internship programs. His philosophy of making a difference permeates his many service activities, numerous board memberships, STEM program development, and volunteering service to local, state, and international organizations. Wow. And mentoring newly started small businesses and nonprofits. He serves on numerous boards. He is currently the president of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, vice chair of the Hampton Roads Chamber, Portsmouth Partnership, Begin Again Foundation, Chair Hampton Roads Workforce Council, Chair ODU College of Engineering, Chair ODU VMASC, Boys and Girls Club, Starbase Victory, Chair Communities and Schools, Portsmouth Athletic League, First Chesapeake Robotics, and many others. Dr. Garcia served 5 years in the U.S. Navy as an enlisted operations specialist, second-class petty officer, and worked in industry for 15 years before founding his first business, Simus, Inc. Dr. Garcia is a known leader in the community, and his service is his compass. Dr. Garcia has degrees from Old Dominion University, a PhD, St. Leo College, alma mater of mine as well. I took a few classes there. So from St. Leo's, he has his Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science, and Florida Institute of Technology, his Master of Science and MBA. Wow. He is the proud father of a wonderful set of 19-year-old twin daughters. My twins are 20. Hope and Faith are the names of his daughters, and he's married to his lovely wife of 35 years. Congratulations on that, Lorena. Dr. Johnny Garcia, my friend, welcome to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast.
Great. Thanks for having me, Bob. Looking forward to the discussion.
Dude, yeah. You have done so much, man, and you're younger than me. We were talking age earlier, and how wonderful we both look for our age. But, man, you have done a lot in a relatively short amount of time. And so congratulations. And I always like to go back to the roots because our seeds of success were planted in our childhood. Where did you grow up?
So, poor Mexican kid, grew up on the cotton fields of Lubbock, Texas.
Lubbock, cool.
Yeah, so good place to be from. Most of my family now has moved out of Lubbock, Texas. So, but I mean, I grew up pretty poor. Knew the only way for me to get out of the situation that we were in was for me to, go to school.
Okay.
educate myself.
For sure.
And as you can tell by the many degrees I've had, I've educated myself, but I've learned so much more, outside of the school and what it is that I'm doing. And you said that I've done a lot in a short period of time. It kind of seems like a long period of time. It's been 35 years, 36 years. So
yeah, that's incredible.
I used to be the young guy in the room. Now I'm the old guy in the room, the gray beard in the room. So yeah.
The sage wizard.
Yeah, sage wizard. There you go. Good one.
So growing up in Lubbock, Texas, poor Mexican kid, you said, what was high school like for you?
So I was a jock in high school. I was voted one of the most popular. I was most likely to succeed. All this stuff in high school, but I had a lot of detours along the way. And honestly, probably the second most important thing I ever did was join the military.
Yeah.
The first thing was meeting and marrying my wife. So
that's awesome.
And the military made most of the man I am today.
Yeah.
And I only spent 5 years in the Navy.
Yeah. I have to agree with that. Same thing for me, even though I spent 26 years. And every veteran I've had on the podcast, they really say the same thing, and they needed that discipline. I sure needed it at the age of 18. Now, did you play, so you were a jock in high school. What sports?
Yeah, I played football, basketball, baseball, but my love was baseball.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you pretty much played
and
everything.
I was pretty good in baseball. Could have played Division I baseball, but I kind of took a detour.
Okay.
As most people who join the military do.
For sure. Yeah, no doubt about it. Do you have memorable coaches?
Several. Ron Gardner was my baseball coach.
Okay.
And he had high hopes for me, as did others.
That's great.
But I mean, girls got in the way. Back in 17, 18 years old.
Happens to the best of us.
And we all knew, I knew so much, but I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And luckily I had an option of joining the military.
Yeah. That's cool, though. You remember, all these years later, you remember your coach's name. Mm-hmm. And so many people do who had, who were heavily influenced by athletics in high school, etc. Did you have a high school job?
I did. So I had several jobs. So my first job was 12 years old.
Wow.
I worked in the cotton fields with my grandmother, my mom, my older sister, Anita. And we worked the cotton fields. I also worked in a onion packing plant. Here I am, 12, 13 years old. And really poor Mexican kid.
Yeah.
My mom had me when she was 14.
Okay.
So, and my dad was 19.
Yeah.
No education. So we had to work the fields in order to make ends meet.
So how did you, with your mother having you so young and your father being such a young man and, growing up in that abject poverty, how did you rise above? In high school, so probably grade school as well. How was it that you rose above that? And I'm reminded of that astronaut. I'm sure you've seen the movie. But how did you rise above such challenging conditions?
It was most of it, I believe, comes from my grandmother. My grandmother, Della, who's my dad's mom. She was always, I was her favorite.
Okay.
For some reason, I don't know why, but she was always in my ear about education. And it was, mijo, this is the only way you're going to get away from this environment, and stay away from the girls.
Yeah.
I didn't stay away from the girls, but I did follow the path of education.
Yeah.
And I knew what I wanted to do when I was 15, 16. You see all these, movies of attorneys and lawyers. I wanted to be a lawyer. So when I got to college, my first stint in college, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be too hard to be a lawyer. Because I wanted to quickly, get a job and make money and do all this other stuff. But we were diverted, or I was diverted into a different path.
Yeah. So you were highly motivated. So what was that diversion?
It was the Navy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go to college? Did you attend any college before you enlisted in the Navy?
Yeah, I was at Texas Tech University.
Okay.
And I was on the path to becoming a lawyer, but girls and trouble and all this other stuff was in my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my best friend, Gabriel Arredondo, he and I both went to Estacada High School. He knew that I was in trouble. And he's like, let's join the Navy.
Wow.
Let's join the Navy.
What was your initial thought there?
And I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to join the Navy. But long story short was I had to join the Navy.
Yeah.
And because I had to join the Navy, he and I went in as buddies.
Okay.
And as and this is a funny story. I got to tell this story is because most veterans, or especially Navy veterans, will get this. Was at boot camp.
And where was boot camp for you?
In Great Lakes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so one of the first things you do is you get fitted for your uniforms. And when I was 15, I broke my leg. And I was trying to tell the lady that was fitting me was that one of my legs was shorter than the other. And she took that as a derogatory comment. And so they ASMO'd me.
ASMO meaning administrative.
They set me back a week.
Okay.
Because of that comment I made to the lady fitting me.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was probably for the better because both Gabriel and I were in the same class. But when I got ASMO'd, I scored really well on my ASVAB. So when I got into the next recruiting class or next class, I became the recruit chief petty officer.
RCPO.
so just because I got ASMO'd, I became the
leader.
The leader.
Yeah.
Because I knew, and I was pretty intelligent. You know, I kind of knew. I mean, I was only there for a week.
Yeah.
What could I know? But our leader of boot camp really liked me and made me the RCPO.
Yeah. Wow.
And ever since then, you know, I'm 19, turning 20. I loved being a leader, especially with a uniform on.
Yeah.
So I really dug being in the Navy.
That's cool. So, so you did like what, 1 year or a couple semesters at Texas Tech?
I
and
did,
then,
yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, and then decided it was time to move on. It just any other high school jobs, real quick, other than like the 12 and 13.
I worked several at a gas station. At a video rental place. We used to rent videos.
Yeah. I remember that.
We didn't have a network. We didn't have phone. We didn't have iPads.
Yeah.
You had to go rent a video.
Yeah, when it was, you could get VHS or beta.
VHS or beta.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And then I actually, I got a scholarship, an academic scholarship from that video
no
sales
kidding.
company.
See,
I did.
Okay.
And that's how I paid for the first year of college.
Okay, and I was going to ask you that, growing up poor, and then you graduate high school and go straight to college. Wow.
Yeah, and I did really well in high school, honor graduate.
Yeah.
Almost top of the class. Again, people had high hopes for me.
Yeah. Did that help you? Did people having that faith in you, did that help motivate you? Yeah.
Of course. And even in high school, I was leader of our... where I went to church at, I was leader of our youth Catholic group. I was the president of that. I did several speeches about being poor and growing up poor and all this stuff and what I needed to do. So I knew I was going to be a leader.
Wow.
At a really, really young age, but I didn't really know how to be a leader.
Sure.
Until I joined the Navy.
Yeah. Okay. So, people ask me this question all the time, and I'm going to ask you, are leaders born or are leaders made? Are people natural born leaders?
I honestly, in my opinion, I think they are.
Uh-huh. You think you are, at least?
I think I was.
Yeah.
I was meant to be a leader.
Yeah.
Because I was never one to... of course, I listened to my superiors.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be the superior.
Yeah.
Just growing up, always.
Yeah.
And my parents will say that. My aunts and uncles will say that Johnny's Ringo was my nickname.
Okay.
Ringo.
All right.
And the reason why
you realize going forward now that's what people are going to call you in this community.
Yeah, Ringo. Yeah, Johnny Ringo. So, and Johnny Ringo was a cowboy.
Okay.
And I don't have my cowboy boots on now, but I normally wear cowboy boots. And as a kid, my grandfather, Willie, that's my mom's dad, put cowboy boots on me when I was little. And so Johnny Ringo stuck. So Ringo was my nickname from then.
That's cool.
They still call me Ringo.
Yeah. That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so clearly your success in adulthood was preceded by success in early life, exposure to great coaches, and any from your high school employment, the VHS or the video rental store, any memorable bosses there, either good or bad?
I think they were bad mostly.
Yeah.
I think the owners of the because there were several. It was not a Blockbuster, but it was kind of like Blockbuster.
Uh-huh.
They owned several of these video stores.
Yeah. Okay.
And they felt comfortable enough giving me some money because they felt that I would come back and work for them.
Okay.
And run their. Who would have ever thought we'd get all digital, their video store companies or video stores across Texas.
Okay.
And so they gave me a scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
But it just ended up not working out.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to that part. So you went to college for a year or so and decided I need to change the scenery, maybe get some discipline. You decided to enlist in the Navy with your friend. You're the recruit company chief petty officer, the RCPO. And when we come in the Navy, we pick a rate or we pick a job specialty before we come in. And had you picked one at that point?
Yeah, so I was always going to be an OS.
Okay, so that's an operational specialist. Tell us a little bit about what.
So as we're picking jobs, I'm like, I could have picked any job.
Yeah.
But OS just sounded cool. I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, operations specialist? What is that? Right? And so they said, you could, what we do as OS is we're in CIC. And we help manage.
So Combat Information Center, CIC.
Yeah, Combat Information Center. And so we do all different types of things related to combat.
You fight the ship.
That's right. And so I thought, man, that's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so I knew that's what I was going to do. So I got lucky enough where when I finished OSA school here at Virginia Beach at Damneck,
okay,
I met my wife here too.
Oh, no kidding.
1989.
Did she grow up here, Virginia Beach?
She grew up in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
Went to Kempsville High School. Her father's was in the Army.
Uh-huh.
She was born in the Philippines. She came here when she was super, super young.
Okay.
Grew up in Virginia Beach. We met here when I was stationed at Damneck and going to OSA school.
Oh, wow, that's
Yeah.
cool. What year?
1989.
89. That's cool, man.
Yeah, 1989. So I did really well in A school, and I graduated first in my class and got to pick anywhere in the world I wanted to go.
Where'd you go?
I ended up in Key West, Florida. And OS is a ship-going rate. So
Yeah.
my rate, you don't get to go to shore duty until after you've done one or two tours on a ship.
Uh-huh.
Well, lucky for me, I ended up with shore duty off the get-go.
Wow.
So I show up to my first duty station in Key West, and the chief petty officer, who actually, he and I are still really, really good friends, John Linkus, he asked me, "What are you doing here?" And I got 2 stripes, not chevron stripes, but 2 stripes.
Yeah.
So I'm a
apprentice.
seaman apprentice.
Uh-huh.
Which is an E2.
Yeah.
And he asked me, "Well, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "Well, here's my orders. This is where I'm supposed to report." And he's like, "We were expecting an E5, not an E2. And oh, by the way, you need a special clearance to work in this facility." So they didn't know what to do with me. So for a year or so, they put me to work in the barracks and in the gee-dunk. That's the snack room.
Yeah.
Until I got my clearance, and which was basically a year. So what I did was I did the best I could.
Yeah.
I went to school. I played on the softball team, and then eventually I got my clearance. And by that time, I was an E4.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, real quick, similar story. I was in that same holding pattern at Great Lakes when I was waiting to go to Navy dive school. And and I was an nobody as well. And they put me in charge of the parking lot. And they said,
Nice.
Make sure that parking lot is clean and, make sure that people are parking appropriately and all that stuff. So I came in like a couple days later with a list of things I needed to maintain the parking lot, starting with paint. It needed to be restriped. And I was like, if I'm going to be in charge of that parking lot, that's going to be the best looking parking lot on this base.
Mm-hmm. Similar story for me too. Was I did it. I mean, the barracks looked amazing. The G-Dunk looked amazing. I did such a great job that the commanding officer of our command, gave me a medal for it.
Yeah. That's
But
cool.
it was, I mean, what else was I supposed to do?
Yeah, right.
And
right.
so, but it was good.
Yeah, okay.
It was a good start, but then I ended up doing shift work. It was Caribbean. It was Carabrock was the name of the command, and that's when we were doing drug interdiction between in the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did drug interdiction surveillance, 24-hour surveillance. So it was 12 on, 12 off.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Wow.
3 days on, 3 days off, and I mean it's Key West, Florida.
Yeah.
So we got to do a lot of fishing. We got to do a lot of softball playing.
Yeah.
So it was a good experience, and it was a joint command. So I was stationed with Air Force, Marines, Army, and Navy.
That's cool. That's
right out the get go.
That's a dream job, really. I mean, plus you're in a dream location, Key West,
Yeah.
Florida. So we probably were on similar missions during that time frame because I was on a rescue and salvage ship, the USS Preserver, 87 to 89, and we were doing a lot of interdiction operations, Leo, with the Coast Guard Leo Dets.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there'll be a fishing trawler in the Gulf of Mexico, and its rigging system is on backwards. And it's on backwards because they removed it to put all the cocaine in the hold.
Yeah.
And then they put the whole afterdeck back on and weld it back in place, and they weld it on backwards.
Yeah, I got a chance to go out on a couple of those debts with the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
And doing boardings and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting behind a desk or a screen looking at the radar, trying to track them, and we did kind of a swap thing. So I got to go out there.
Yeah, that's
which
awesome.
is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And back then we had the Femrons. I don't know if you remember those, but they were the
The high speed?
the high speed.
Yeah.
The basically
Hydrofoils. Yeah. The like the Pegasus and the Zeus. And
yeah, I got to ride in those as well. So
That's cool.
here I am, 20 years old.
Yeah.
Thinking this is how the Navy is.
Yeah.
That's not how the Navy is.
then you went to a ship.
I went to a ship. Yeah, I ended up in Jacksonville on a cruiser.
Okay.
And I show up the first day I show up. This is a great story. First day I show up, there's a hurricane coming.
Ooh, what year is this?
This was in '92.
Okay. Opal
in
maybe.
Jacksonville.
Uh-huh.
And we had to get out.
Okay.
The day I checked on board the ship, they were like, "We're leaving.
Getting underway.
We're getting underway." And I had never been on a Navy ship before.
Wow.
And it was an experience. Because we honestly thought we were going to die.
Yeah. What class of ship was it?
It was a cruiser, a Leahy class.
Okay.
Cruiser.
So a large naval vessel, but small when it comes to hurricanes.
Oh, it was small.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'd never been on a Navy ship before. And they basically told us, strap yourself into your rack and do not leave until we tell you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So it was an experience.
I rode through one between Bermuda in the U.S. as well on that same ship, the USS Preserver, and yeah. So I get it. Like our brow, which the brow is the thing that connects the ship to shore. It's what you walk across. Some people call it a gangplank. The Navy calls it a brow. And so when we get underway, the brow is raised and it's swung in and attached to the side of the ship. Our brow got ripped off, one side of the ship during that hurricane. So crazy. Okay, so how did that tour go overall?
So I did pretty good. I was able to get second class. I was able to get my surface warfare pin.
Okay.
This was before OIF, so I was able to do a couple of interesting tours in the Med. and then that ship got decommissioned.
Okay. All right.
And from there, I ended up the USS Saipan.
Okay.
Here in Norfolk.
Okay. Saipan being a
LHA-2.
LHA-2, so it's an amphibious
Helicopter carrier.
Helicopter carrier, primarily for Marines, or
It was mostly Marines.
okay.
Yeah, mostly.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were basically a Marine taxi.
Yeah, right.
Which and it's funny enough, the gentleman John Linkus that I met in Key West, that was the ship he was on.
Oh, no kidding.
And so as I'm leaving the Dell, he's like, "You should come to the Saipan. We're in the yards. You know, we're not going to deploy for a while. By the time we deploy, you'll be a second class." You know, kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the Saipan because of John, and it was a different experience going from a cruiser where we really had a mission, you know, as part of warfare, to now becoming basically a taxi for Marines.
Yeah.
And an OS's job is very different on a helicopter carrier than it is on a cruiser.
Okay.
And I really didn't like it as much. I was able to get my air warfare pin. So
okay, cool.
I'm a OS2 SWAW.
Yeah, yeah.
And then after we did that cruise, I didn't know if the Navy was right for me. So then my division officer, who was also enlisted, kind of like you, LDO, and he got me to apply for the Seaman to Admiral.
All right, so Seaman to Admiral. So we called it Stay 21.
Yeah.
STA 21, was it the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so you applied for and got picked up for Seaman to Admiral. Had you done college courses prior to that?
Yeah, several. While I was on when I was in Key West, Florida Keys Community College, and when I was on the ships, I did all different types. I mean, the Navy provided you with tremendous opportunities
tuition
to get
assistance.
education, tuition assistance. I mean, I never paid for 1 cent of school.
No kidding. All the way through your PhD?
All the way through my PhD.
That's incredible. So same thing, you know, tuition assistance. I was a young person. I was married as well very early in my career. It turned out to be a big mistake in my part, you know. I wanted to go to Navy college. It took me a few years, but I finally did. But you're right. It's there. It's a benefit. Why would you not use it? And, you know, I guess I had some crusty Master Chief early in my career who said, don't be like me at the end of a 20-plus year career with 0 college.
Yeah.
And so I took that serious and did the same thing, and, you know, all the way through graduate school. So what an incredible program.
It is. Mm-hmm.
So you got picked up for Stay 21. So you went to school full-time at that point?
Did not.
Oh.
Did not. So when
the plot thickens.
It does. So my then division officer, who had just become an LDO, his name's John Saya. So
okay.
A lot of people know John. Great guy. He was Master Chief turned ensign.
Okay.
So if LDOs know, it's kind of a big difference going from a Master Chief to an ensign
versus a chief or an E6.
That's right.
Huge difference. So real quick for the listeners, so in the Navy we have a program called LDO, or Limited Duty Officer, which is how I retired. I was an LDO, but you can go from enlisted to officer technically without a bachelor's degree, although most LDO candidates do have a degree or a lot of school. And this is the Navy's way of taking senior enlisted who have a great technical skill set and putting them in these key leadership positions.
That's right. And so that was John. And I don't really think he liked being an officer. I mean, he went from, you know, having 2 stars and being, I would say, super respected to a butter bar.
Yeah.
You know,
which
is an 01.
Yeah.
01E, and he's making more money. But,
but you're a junior boy.
That's right. You know, so, and he really liked me. And it's a funny story because like you and he had twin daughters who recently just, you know, both of his daughters got married. So he and I are still friends. Actually, his son, John Saya Jr., actually works for us as a recruiter.
That's cool.
So it's a really great relationship. So And John came to me, then Ensign Saya, and said, "Look, Johnny, the Navy will make you a great officer, but you will more than likely be a shitty dad and a shitty husband."
Wow.
Because he said that was me. Because my life belonged to the Navy.
Yeah.
Not, I was listening to something that somebody said about work-life balance, and in the Navy, there's no such thing, because the Navy owns you.
Right. Mission first.
That's right. And this was in 1994. And we're things are ramping up in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And I mean I've been married for going on 4.5 years. I talked to my wife about it. It would have been a big commitment for me to join Seaman Admiral. I thought it was a great opportunity. My wife not so.
Okay. Wow.
She was like, maybe we should take our chance outside. Because I had just come off deployment, and they were going to send me away again.
Yeah.
And so I decided to reject the offer.
Wow.
And it's a funny story too, because they only accepted 70 in the entire Navy. Then this was the first class.
Yeah.
And
they just introduced the program.
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That was the first class ever.
Uh-huh.
I gave up my spot, and funny enough, Tom Walker, local guy, Drone Up CEO, took my spot.
Wow. So Drone Up, real quick, very successful startup here in Virginia Beach. And
Tom and I are really good friends.
That's incredible.
We have a really great story because he was on the West Coast. I was here on the East Coast. He was number 71.
Yeah.
And when I gave up my spot, he got in.
That's incredible. That is a great story.
It is crazy how our paths has crossed.
It is.
Over the years, but it's a good story. But I honestly, in my opinion, I think I made the right choice.
Yeah, well, clearly you have.
In doing that.
Sure, and as we go forward in the discussion, the listeners will understand why that was such a great decision. So you turned it down. What was that? So now the clock's ticking. You're short. You're getting ready to get out.
So actually, the way it ended up happening was the Navy was downsizing in 2004. And they allowed me to get 6 months out. So
okay.
I got a job, and if I had a job, I could get out early. So I got a job at what then was the Joint Training Analysis and Simulation Center in Suffolk.
Out in Suffolk,
the
yeah.
JTASC.
Yeah.
And it just opened. It just opened. I had the job, and so the Navy let me out 6 months early.
Wow, that's cool. So were you a GS or a government contractor?
I was a contractor.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I worked for a small company called Veda.
Okay.
Which was bought by Veridian, which Veridian was bought by General Dynamics.
Wow.
So when I left the Navy, I worked for General Dynamics for 15 years.
Wow. And during that time, I imagine you saw and you envisioned what owning your own business and establishing your own business would look like.
I mean, I think it's a good story because I was very entrepreneurial even in the Navy. Because even when I was in the Navy, I mean, I didn't make a lot of money.
Yeah, nobody does.
Nobody does. But it was an opportunity for me to do numerous things. But I always had a second job.
Yeah.
Because, when I was in Key West, I worked at Radio Shack.
Oh, wow.
Or at Circle K to make extra money. I couldn't really work a second job when I was on the Dale in Mayport. But when I got to the LHA in Norfolk, I had a second job selling vacuums.
Wow.
So I was a Kirby vacuum seller because I needed extra money, but I also went to school.
Yeah.
With the Navy tuition assistance program, paid for all my school. So I was very active in trying to pursue what my career was going to be. But luckily, I kind of bumped into modeling and simulation, and that was the JTASC.
Okay.
Never knew what M&S was. Somebody asked me if I could, and as an operations specialist, I could operate helicopters as an ATACO, or I could operate small boats.
So explain that modeling and sim for the non-military person,
Yeah. So and most of us, or any of us, if you're playing games, that's a simulation.
Okay. Gaming.
And yeah, I mean, that's simulation.
For sure.
Before it was gaming.
Yeah.
And so basically you build a model, and you take time, you apply time or movement, and that's simulation.
And this is all within a computer. You build this model.
That's right.
You're building basically a computer program.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And so it was fairly new in the Navy. It was fairly new in training, and this JTASK, this new training organization in Suffolk, needed an operator to operate a simulation, a Navy simulation. And so I luckily happened to land in that job in 1994, and I went from computer operator. Within 6 years, I was the CTO of General Dynamics Advanced Information Systems.
Chief Technology Officer. Wow, Chief Technology Officer of General Dynamics.
Before I was 30.
Wow, where were you in your education at this point?
By that time, I was in the PhD program at ODU.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
And what is your PhD course of study?
Modeling and simulation.
Modeling and simulation.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I was number 9 in the world to have that PhD designation.
No kidding. Holy cow. So, I mean, is that, what's the kind of the bread and butter of that? Is it electronics based? Is it computer code based?
I mean, it's so M&S is multifaceted. So it's not just hardware or software. Like my current company now, we build replicators that replicate an environment, and these are unmanned systems that can replicate an ARG, for instance, or
amphibious readiness group,
right?
Okay,
right, or a carrier group,
okay,
and it's a small
CSG,
platform.
a carrier strike group.
But what I've learned over the last 25, 30 years is that you can do just about anything in simulation, and you can see it today.
Yeah.
Most everything that you see in autonomy, unmanned cars, you can't do it without simulation.
That reminds me of something we're going to have to talk about in some video I'm going to have to show you when we're done. We might have a great project to work on together. I mean something really cool.
Sweet.
And I just need to make a note on that real quick. So there's my note. I know what that means. So prior to your PhD, you achieved both a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Arts. Tell me about those.
So all that I did all that at St. Leo College. That was before they were a university. And by the way, I'm pretty involved in what they do down in St. Leo, Florida. I was actually on the President's Council for St. Leo.
Oh, cool.
Got to meet and actually hire the current president. I've done several things there at the university now. It's a great place.
Yeah.
I'm a good Catholic boy from Texas. Great Catholic school. So anybody interested, is a great campus if you haven't been there.
Yeah.
For that. And I did that while I was on active duty, and then as I was working at General Dynamics.
No kidding. Okay. So St. Leo and both those degrees are from St. Leo?
They are.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So when I was, again, early in my, E3, E4, maybe E5, on Little Creek, you had St. Leo, Little Creek Naval Amphibious Base here in Virginia Beach. The on-base universities were St. Leo, Golden Gate University. Mm-hmm. So, and that's where my graduate degree is international relations. And Golden Gate University had this international relations program. I didn't even know it was a thing, back then. I was 21 or something, and but those educational offices, inspired me, and thank goodness for those educational counselors, who told me, hey, just take these 2 or 3 or 4 classes in St. Leo's, and that's going to help you towards what you want to do at Golden Gate, which is going to help you. So mine is stitched together from probably Florida State University. I'm stitched together from probably 7 or 8 universities over the course of my career. Okay.
TCC.
Yeah.
Florida Keys. St. Leo. I didn't do anything at Golden Gate, but I mean, it was just they worked with us military folks. So I would get off.
Exactly.
I would get off the ship, and in my uniform, go straight to class there at Little Creek or at NOB.
Yeah.
Do my class and then go home.
Yeah.
And they were shortened semesters. They were 8
That's
to 10
right.
week, 8 to 10 week semesters.
That's right.
So I could do 3 to 4 semesters a year.
Yeah.
And that's where I got the BA and then the BS. Well, actually, I got the associates first.
Yeah, me
then
too.
The BA,
Yep.
then the BS.
Yeah.
And then FIT, Florida Institute of Technology, was also a non-based school. So I did the Masters of Science, and they had a dual enrollment program for an MBA. So I did all that.
Wow. Holy cow. And
Yeah.
so that was Florida State. How and so like scholarship or tuition, you're using your GI benefits?
So all of it was tuition assistance. So the GI Bill paid for all of that. Plus, General Dynamics gave me refund for tuition.
No kidding.
So I actually made money going to school. So instead of me working a second or third job, I was going to school and actually making extra money.
Yeah.
Because General Dynamics was reimbursing me for education.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Plus, it would be very difficult. Work full time, school as much as you can fit in, and then a job on top of that would be crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was pretty entrepreneurial. We owned a couple of businesses then.
Oh, no kidding.
Between my wife, myself, and my mother-in-law.
Okay.
And as you can probably tell, I always got a really great haircut because we owned beauty salons.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So, up until my mother-in-law passed away.
Okay.
And
what area?
they were all in Virginia Beach.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you still have any interest in beauty salons?
No interest anymore.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, but I mean, we'd done that for 20 some odd years.
Yeah. Who
Yeah.
cuts your hair now?
I have a lady. Yeah, but nobody ever cut my hair unless it was my mother-in-law.
Oh, wow.
For years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, man. So, again, every part of your background is hard work. It's obviously moral and ethical character. It's commitment to family, commitment to Christ. Obviously, in your case, I grew up as a Catholic, as a practicing Catholic, and so it's just really impressive to hear how you made it to this point. 15 years, you work for General Dynamics. At some point, you decide, I'm going to do this myself.
Yeah, so it's a funny story because it was more of I wouldn't say an accident. So General Dynamics Advanced Information Systems was where I worked. And I was pretty high up. I mean, I had a really good position. I was making good money. My boss, retired 3-star Air Force general, is moving to a different company. I won't mention the name of the company. But his name's Buck Marr, Major General Buck Marr. Phenomenal American. Great man. Came to me and he said, Johnny, you're never going to have my job. Because the way General Dynamics thinks is you just don't have the pedigree to be in this job.
Wow.
Right? And I probably would say today he was right then. Probably not today.
Yeah, right.
I think, you talk a lot about DE&I and all these other things. And,
Yeah.
Here I am, a Mexican doctor. I'm sure I have the same opportunities today. I have more opportunities today than I did 20 years ago.
For sure. For
yeah,
sure.
Definitely. So I'm not knocking General Dynamics.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah.
They're actually a customer of mine. But Buck came to me and said, why are you here? Literally came to me and said, why are you here? And I'm like, to do a job. He's like, you could do this on your own. I didn't know what he meant by that. So Dave Mock, God rest his soul, he was our business development manager. And I came to him and I talked to him about, doing what it is that I'm doing. And I'm running a $100 million business unit, mostly around simulation and training in Suffolk and other parts of the country. And he's saying that you could do this on your own. You could go out and start your own company and do this. So I'm finishing up my PhD, and I found this opportunity where they were interested in the exact work that I'm doing. It's called Executable Architecture Analysis Model. So I basically built a model that can provide decision makers an analysis of what they're doing is validated or not. Anything from building systems to implementing new systems to doing a simulation of the system in an operational environment to provide feedback. And we call them, right now we call them key decision makers or key performance parameters or other types of things like that. But this was 20 some odd years ago.
And primarily in the Department of Defense space?
That's right.
Okay.
Right. So I submitted a white paper to a broad agency announcement, and boom, they picked it up.
Wow.
And this is how great General Dynamics was. They're like, Johnny, start your own company, and we'll subcontract the work to you.
Wow.
And so they did. And Simus was created.
And what is Simus?
So Simus actually stands for, and that's a good story too, it's Simulation and Information Security. So I'm the simulation guy, and a friend of mine, we actually went to school together, St. Leo and Florida Tech, Mark Wolfgang. He was in the Navy as well. He was in IT. And he and I were at literally the back of a bar napkin, Keybridge Marriott in D.C.
Oh, I've stayed there many times.
Yeah,
love that place.
Keybridge Marriott at the bar.
Yep. I want to take a minute to tell you about my book titled Elevate Your Leadership: How to Develop, Maintain, and Advance Lifelong Leadership. This book is based on my 26 years in U.S. Navy Special Operations and now 13 years in the private sector. Leadership is a perishable skill and a personal brand. In part 1, I guide you through building and applying your personal brand of leadership. Leadership also requires physical energy and mental clarity. In part 2, I go over the 6 key components of health and wellness and how you can apply these components every single day to become a great leader. This book is also breathable. What does that mean? It's 170 pages, 12-point font, with charts and graphs and pictures to break up the monotony of reading page after page. Finally, this book is available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and of course, RobertPizzini.com. Folks, I want to take a minute and talk about Breeden Construction. Breeden Construction built iFly Virginia Beach 10 years ago, and our building is solid. Why? Building a standard. Our standard is excellence. Visionary thinking, innovative design, dynamic solutions, and transformative growth. While others may see lofty ideals, we see the very foundation needed to construct a better future. This isn't just a promise we make to you, it's the standard we uphold. This is Breeden Construction. Learn more at breedenconstruction.com. Headquartered in Virginia with offices throughout Virginia and North Carolina, you can contact Breeden Construction directly at area code 804-364-4600. Breeden Construction, a national general contractor.
We came up with the name. This was December of 2004.
Okay.
We came up with the name SIMIS. I'm the simulation, and he's the information security.
Okay.
Because he was a CISSP, if you know what that is.
I don't. What is
Certified Information Security Systems Professional.
Okay.
Which is a really big certification. Simus currently has several CISSPs that do the kind of work that we do. So,
okay.
We came up with the name Simus, and GD subcontracted the work to us.
So you incorporated, or you LLC,
yeah,
or
well, Simus Inc.
Okay, Simus
which was
Inc.
a bad thing to do back in in 2004.
Yeah, in terms of the way you organize a business.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So, and we actually didn't set up the S Corp until February of 2005.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I got my numbers mixed up. It was February of 2006.
Okay.
Not 2004. So February 2006, Mark and I started Simus.
Okay. And had contracts right out the gate.
We did, but if anybody remembers what's happening in 2006, was we were in a horrible economic situation.
That's right. I mean,
it was probably one of the worst housing markets, as well as, we were in a massive decline in everything.
Yeah.
So it was tough.
Yeah. That's the year that we transferred from Washington State here to Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
And bought a house in 2006.
Yeah. So you lost as much money as I did.
Yeah.
So, but it was a big risk. It was a big change for us. I mean, I had a great job at GD. They were paying me well. To going to starting a new company with Mark, and Mark actually lived in Florida, and then he ended up moving here, but we made it. I mean, we made it. We went from two people with the idea of we're going to do what it is that we do. We wanted to be consultants. We wanted to be a lifestyle company where it was just going to be he and I, and we were just going to do what it is we do, charge, astronomical dollars, and not worry about overhead and facilities and all this other stuff. But
AKA naivete.
Within 6 to 9 months, we had 50 people.
Yeah. Wow.
Because we had capability, we could talk the talk, and Mark was doing well. Department of Energy, Department of Commerce, and we were doing all kinds of. What Mark's expertise was penetration testing, so ethical hacking services. So basically, he could break into networks and fix networks for federal government customers. So he was doing well, and then the joint task and joint experimentation just started picking up. I knew all the customers. As a small business, we teamed up with General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. I mean, the big dogs. Booz Allen, right out the gates. They needed a small business.
Wow.
They needed somebody that could be inexpensive and hire the right people. So we came out the gates running.
Wow.
Which honestly was a bad thing, because anybody that goes from 2-person to 50-person overnight, you don't have processes, you don't have systems, you don't have all the things that you need to operate, a $10 million company weren't in place.
Yeah, for sure.
So we floundered. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, scaling up too fast. A lot of businesses fail because they scale up way too fast.
And we struggle because of it. Great people. We had great people. And we did okay for a few years. But then Mark decided that this is not what he wants to do.
Okay.
So in 2009, we split up. And so I took over control of Simus myself. And funny enough, we hired Mark to be a consultant for us.
Okay.
Instead of being in the ownership group, he just became a consultant.
Okay. All right. Didn't have to worry about all the aspects of ownership.
Yeah. All the great part of our job.
Yeah. Right.
A lot of people don't know happens.
Yeah. The stuff you absolutely don't dream about when you dream about having a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's been an interesting ride from then. I've done everything from economic gardening, because there was this. One of our biggest contracts was USJFCOM.
Okay. So the building, where you started ultimately became U.S. Joint Forces Command.
That's right.
The compound got bigger out in Suffolk. So I was out there for a little while as well.
It was ACOM, Atlantic Command.
Yeah.
And the customer had a small mission. And then
the J7.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It was just the joint training. Facility for ACOM. And then in 2001 or 2002, I can't remember what year it was, they stood up the JFCOM.
Yeah.
Joint Forces Command.
Yep.
And they threw billions of dollars at it, from joint experimentation, joint training, all of the cyber initiatives, all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So it grew. So did we. We grew to hundreds of people.
Wow.
And then that fateful January, they shut the entire command down to include all of our contracts.
The dissolution of Joint Forces Command.
That's right.
And then they became the Joint Staff.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that transition took some time. But by then I had lost the contracts.
Okay.
Lost hundreds of people.
Wow.
Lost millions of dollars.
Wow.
And we had to recreate ourselves. And we were one of the first companies to do economic gardening.
What is that?
So basically it's looking at the capabilities that you have and apply that to other industries.
Okay. All right.
And so we found several niches that we could provide separate capabilities to. One of it was healthcare. The other one was wellness. And of course, other federal government customers. And so we went down that road. We started in the medical modeling and simulation. So we set up a new company to do medical modeling and simulation. We built some really cool products.
Like what's an example of one of those
so
products?
we built CPR training mannequin systems.
Okay.
That worked with gaming platforms. Really, really successful. We had some patents on it. We worked with some universities. We worked with everybody. Unfortunately, we partnered with Microsoft.
Okay.
And if anybody, obviously everybody knows of the Kinect, Xbox.
Right.
So we leveraged Microsoft Windows Kinect systems.
Okay.
Which worked off the Windows platforms. And then in I can't remember the year, 2015 or 2016, Microsoft discontinued the Kinect camera.
Oh, wow.
For Windows. So everything that we had built, the millions and millions of dollars that we put into these systems, were no longer valid.
Holy cow.
So and that was the pucker factor when it came to, building systems around an operating system that was no longer supported, kind of changed our mindset.
Yeah.
So we had to find other camera systems. But by that time, most of our customers were like, well, how long is it going to take you to fix this? We couldn't fix it in time.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's called AIMS, Automated Intelligent Mentoring System. We had it all over the globe. And then the moment Microsoft dissolved all the support, and for people that work on Microsoft systems, you get updates from Microsoft all the time. Well, the moment that you're in an operating system that no longer gets those updates, then you're basically dead.
Yeah.
And we couldn't transition it. So it was another one of those really great ideas that failed.
Yeah. Holy cow. Well.
Yeah. Most people, when they talk, oh, you're so successful, you've had so much success, but it's in the failures where I believe you learn the most.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. They're so same thing. I've got a highly visible, highly successful business, but since I've established this, I've had some other ventures not go so well. So constantly in that learning mode. So there's a lot going on. Johnny, you are energetic, and you have to be to have the mental capacity that you have. I'm energetic. I don't have anywhere near your mental capacity, but I do use a product called Magic Mind. And this is what Magic Mind looks like. It's a 2-ounce shot. It has natural ingredients. It's considered a nootropic, I believe is how you say it, a nootropic. But this is a great all-natural way to have energy that will last throughout the day. And when I say energy, it's not so much physical energy as it is mental clarity. Mental clarity is what makes us successful. Mental clarity is what keeps us on course. Mental clarity means we're getting things done. We're accomplishing the task. Magic Mind, all natural ingredients, agave, lion's mane, turmeric, other incredible ingredients. So one shot of this, I do a shot. I think it tastes delicious. Other people mix it with different things, but Magic Mind will help you have incredibly productive days. All right. Back to this incredible discussion. You face that adversity and failure, as you said, and learn from it. How did you go forward from that?
I mean, there's been several start and stops. That economic gardening opportunity, helped. It established really great relationships with me and the state of Virginia. So Virginia Economic Development Partnership, the VEDP,
Okay.
has been very helpful with us, not just with what we do here in America, but what we do internationally.
Yeah.
But also establish wonderful relationships with, Hampton Roads is amazing when it comes to business. Especially the Hampton Roads Chamber, which congratulations,
Thank
new
you.
chair. And not only that, just the environment, the Hampton Roads Alliance, which is just now called the Alliance, and Doug Smith. They've been extremely helpful. The Hampton Roads Workforce Council, which I'm the incoming chair of, has been extremely helpful for the things that we're doing.
Okay.
But still, the business community in Hampton Roads, what a great place.
For sure.
But also, the ability to help our community also helps my business. So people ask me, well, damn, Johnny, you're involved in all these things.
All these things. Look at this.
And it's for not just because I want to give them my time, but it's because it helps my business.
Sure.
It really, truly does. I mean, the stuff that I do for the kids, like First Robotics League and things like that, I love doing that. But you know what enables me to do? It enables me to bring leaders of our Hampton Roads, of the state, even of the U.S., to see what it is we're doing. And it's not to shed light on me, but it's to shed light on the things that we need to do for our future.
Yeah.
My involvement in Portsmouth, I'm no longer in Portsmouth. I moved from Portsmouth to Suffolk.
Okay. The flagpole for Simus.
4 months ago.
Oh, wow.
So everything now we're a Suffolk company. Everything's in Suffolk.
Okay.
Love Portsmouth. But what I'm doing now required us to have more land, access to water, access to power.
Okay.
Other things that we wanted to do in Portsmouth, but it was not. It would have not been as successful as I wanted it to be in Portsmouth.
Okay.
I tried to build a couple of data centers in Portsmouth. Nothing against Portsmouth. It just became too hard.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, some municipalities they have layers of bureaucracy. In Virginia Beach, we have layers of bureaucracy plus limited land. Limited industrial zones. And so these are, and Suffolk, I know it's like wide open.
Yeah.
There's the industry that's moving into Suffolk is it's like a light speed. What's going on out there?
And so that I made that decision because that's where it needs to be.
Yeah.
For several different reasons that we can talk about a little bit later, but my involvement in all these organizations is mostly to help me with business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned early. So 26 years in the Navy, right? So my business experience in acumen, came later and is still developing. But at some point, I learned early in my business career, the more you give, the more you get. And so we're a very giving organization at iFly Virginia Beach, and then some of my other interests, very involved with a few foundations. Hockey is near and dear to my heart, and so all things ice and helping youth hockey and people with disabilities and veterans, but the more you give, the more you get.
For sure.
And it benefits this organization and everybody in my organization.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I love research.
Yeah.
I love trying to identify solutions to massive problems. And so that's what I've based a lot of what I do. In Simus, in my other business ventures, and I've had many business ventures from golf to wellness.
Yeah.
A lot of people know about my cannabis initiatives. And it's not really about cannabis the plant. It's more about the research from cannabis. I started the research at Princeton with some really, really intelligent professors at Princeton. We figured out ways to leverage cannabinoids, CBD, to help. Come on. We got to help our wounded warriors.
For sure.
We got to help our struggling service members. Good friend of mine was in the Navy, struggled with mental issues, retired commander, took his life a couple of weeks ago.
Couple weeks ago.
Yes.
This is one I don't believe I've heard about.
No.
So,
and he reached out for help, and he was not. Come on, everybody could be helped.
Yeah.
But most of these service members, they get on psychotropics, they get on all these mind-altering medicines, and it doesn't really help them. It actually makes it worse. Back when I started the research on the CBD, on the cannabis side at Princeton, we found that the results were amazing, especially for PTSD, especially for several issues related to our wounded warriors.
Yeah.
And it's not about getting them high.
Right.
It's about them being functioning
For sure.
humans.
For sure.
And these psychotropics, they're not functioning. They're in a state of nothing.
No, it's a state of numbness.
Yeah.
And and I'm in the middle of all that right now. I've got lower back issues, and my TBI is mild compared to other people, but I've gone through a lot of these different treatment protocols, and especially the Lyrica and the pregabalin and some of these things that really impair functioning. I own a business. I have 40 employees. They need a boss to show up every day who's engaged and energetic, and I'll admit some days it's difficult when I can barely move because of lower back issues. But again, this is not about me and my lower back. This is about your topic and what's helping veterans and others. Yeah. And I know so many people who have gone through so many different of these protocols that are not FDA, I'm word searching here.
Yeah.
These alternative protocols, I guess, right? And a lot of them you have to leave the country for.
Yeah.
And I have 2 trips outside the U.S. scheduled right now. I'm going to Mexico in about a month, and I'm going to have a significant stem cell protocol done, and then to Jamaica in March for a psilocybin protocol. And again, these are not like psychedelic adventures. These are clinical processes that are designed to restore me to as much as possible to normal functioning.
Yeah.
So,
so when we looked at what this miracle, I would call it a miracle plant, can do, we were amazed at the results. Amazed. And it's most unfortunate that most of the people that are using this product, they're using it to get high. And that's everybody's mindset. Federally, it's not legal.
It's part of the landscape.
Of course,
Yeah.
And it's been going on for hundreds of years. But this is real research, real approaches to solving a real problem, and we've done that.
It's incredible, absolutely incredible.
And it's unfortunate that so we started it in Canada, and then we moved it to Jersey, to Princeton. Then we moved it to Florida, and then we were able to get it legalized in Virginia. And I'm no politician, even though people say I should be. We thought we had a really good plan, and when I say we, there's so many people involved.
For sure.
My wife runs and owns this company.
Okay.
We thought we had a really good foothold in Virginia to get all this legalized. And unfortunately, politics got in the way.
Yeah, right.
And I believe with this administration coming in, it should be federally
at the national level. Yeah.
At the national level, federally legal, and then all these issues should be resolved.
Yeah.
But come on, we have created a massive black market.
Yeah, it's
in
a mess.
Virginia.
Yeah.
In America.
Yep.
And it's a I don't know if it's a market, a black market that we can defend or defend against. But look, my interest is wellness.
Right.
And my interest in wellness is helping people that can't help themselves because of several other issues. And it isn't psychotropics. It isn't opioids. It isn't, but that's what this research has identified. And look, I've spent millions and millions of dollars at this. We have, but I think the solution is there. But give us the opportunity to provide the solution, especially to our warfighters.
Yeah, right. Are you? Do you know LaTanya Warren? Okay. Are you working with her in any capacity? Okay. And just for the listeners, so LaTanya Warren has a PhD in chemistry, and cannabinoid research was basically her thesis, and so she is working with the academic institutions as well to advance both research and education, and pharmacology and dispensary, and all the things that go into normal pharmaceuticals and medicine, generally speaking. So if this moves in the direction that you're working to move it, this is a whole nother. It's almost a whole nother medical industry when it gets incorporated into the existing, I guess, pharmacological type of industry. Yeah. Where do you see this going?
I think I'm kind of in the gray area, because when we first started this has been over 10 years now that we've been doing this, and it has changed so frequently.
Yeah.
And I think it's a belief of people just are ignorant about it.
For sure.
They haven't learned as much as I've learned about it.
Yeah.
And everybody just assumes, it's just
potheads
to get stoned.
Yeah.
And that's not the case, and I think it's an educational approach. Look, we were successful in Virginia. A lot of help, a lot of people involved in getting it moved in Virginia. So what did we do? We legalized marijuana. But you didn't put a market around it.
Right.
So now you have pot smokers everywhere like, thank you. But that wasn't the solution.
Yeah.
What we're trying to get to is, how do we take this miracle plant,
right,
and apply it to massive issues, that need to be solved.
Yeah.
But politics got in the way.
No,
Where do I see it in the future? I mean, if we can enhance the research, because the research is only getting better. We figured out how to take nanoparticles of the hemp plant, it's not the marijuana plant, the hemp plant, CBD, and apply it to all these separate issues. And you can't claim medical relief. It's not allowed. But we have proof that it works.
Sure.
Not only that, people that were buying the products said, man, this is amazing. This is the greatest thing I've ever had.
Yeah. Well, I had somebody on the podcast, a veteran EOD guy like myself, war zone, IEDs, explosions. And he had severe injury. He had chronic pain. He was suicidal. And he sat right where you're sitting now, and he told me he was driving to Colorado to go disappear in the woods and never come out. And amongst the things that turned things around from him was CBD.
Yeah.
And it created pain relief. It created anxiety relief. A lot of us who have been to the war zone deal with PTSD. Not just the war zone, people who have tragic incidents in their lives. And in his case, the CBD made a huge difference.
Yeah, and that's what we hear a lot of. But I mean, that's not really. I wanted to do this. Like, for instance, like the medical simulation stuff. Why did I focus on CPR? My uncle, Jesse, 42 years old, died in a supermarket while he was working because nobody knew how to do CPR.
Wow.
All somebody had to do was give him CPR, and he would have lived. But he didn't. So I focused on CPR. The other thing we did was endotracheal intubation. Just about every single medical professional needs to learn how to do intubation, how to intubate somebody. I mean, even in the military. And so we built a system that trained just you and I how to do an intubation if we needed to. Not that we ever want to.
Yeah.
And several other medical simple procedures like phlebotomies and all these other, we built building a simulation with a camera.
Wow. Between Simus and your subsidiary companies, how many employees do you have?
Right now?
Yeah, I realize it ebbs and flows, but
120.
Okay, all right. And with the 120 employees, you're leading. You're the flag bearer. You're the leader of the organization. I'm sure everybody knows that. Kind of shifting over to leadership a little bit. How have you approached leadership within your organization, and how do you approach it today?
Well, I mean, I think it's an evolving. Look, as leaders, we have to evolve with the times. The times are very different than they were just 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The workforce is extremely different than it was just 10 years ago. And I have to constantly be evolving. And you lead differently than and I mean, it's a touchy subject. Why? Because the workforce is not like when you and I were in our 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite different today.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't about, and I mentioned earlier, the work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer that. It's work harmony.
Mm-hmm.
Because happy employees do better work.
Mm-hmm. No question. No question.
And it's about their life environment. Can't change much of that.
Uh-huh.
The only thing I can change is how we do what we do at work. COVID changed everything. And I think you even wrote it in your book, mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
The things that you had to do to make sure your business stayed afloat
Mm-hmm.
during COVID, I had to do similar
Uh-huh.
things. I just invested tens of millions of dollars in a new facility in Suffolk that people don't want to come to.
Wow.
Because they want to work remote.
Yeah, right.
Because that's the environment that they're used to now.
Yeah. That was created.
Honestly, I think
COVID.
it's less productive than when we were in
So does Donald Trump.
Yeah, less productive. I agree.
So does Elon Musk.
And it's because what's probably the most important part about any business is culture.
For sure.
And you can't create a culture via Zoom or
Yeah.
Teams, or you create a culture working in the trenches together.
Yeah.
And so that's the part where, as a leader, I have evolved. And it's different from day to day. Honestly, I mean, it's as we're venturing into our new ventures. Luckily, Simus was awarded a $1 billion contract about 6 months ago for the Navy.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it'd be great if we had a budget.
Yeah.
But we don't.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to talk to Senator Warner, Congressman Kiggins about this a couple weeks ago. What the CR does. Guess what? We can't start new programs in a CR.
Yeah.
So these autonomous systems that the Navy needs today, not 18 months from now, they need them today now. We can't build because we don't have a budget.
Wow.
So a whole bunch of those things, but all these types of environments make us different kinds of leaders.
That's right. That's right.
So when I first started Simus, I was a hands-on leader. What does that mean? That means I was in the trenches with my employees.
Yeah.
I was turning wrenches. I was writing code. I was doing everything I needed to do to make sure we generated revenue. And if anybody ever wants to have extreme pucker factor, concerned about payroll is huge.
For sure.
In 19 years, I've never missed a payroll.
Yeah. Me neither. There was one that was close.
There was two. I have two very good examples where it was so damn close. Where, I had to do what I had to do.
Writing checks by hand.
To make sure. But that, things like that. But you had to be a different kind of leader to do that.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
And
that's
in
fact.
everything that we do, I'm trying to be more of a hands-off leader. What does that mean? Look, I got great people. But these great people, you have to give them autonomy to make decisions.
Absolutely.
But also live with their decisions.
Mm-hmm.
If I bail them out, then they can constantly make bad decisions or good decisions. So I let them live with their decisions.
Yeah. Which isn't always easy to do.
It is not. Especially in the position that I'm in. I mean, the company has been in ebb and flow. I mean, it's 19 years. We're 19 years in February.
Wow.
So we've generated hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. We've made and lost a lot of money. But it's these, and I think all of the things that we've done over the years, from economic gardening to looking at other industries, the autonomy space that we're in now, the cyberspace. We're now a certified CMMC level 2 certifier. So you know what that is?
I have no idea.
Yeah, so it's a capability maturity model.
Okay.
For cybersecurity. So every single defense contractor will have to be CMMC level 1 or level 2 certified by the end of this year.
Okay.
And if you're not, you can't bid on contracts.
And you're a certifying agency for that?
We help them get certified.
Okay. Oh, gotcha.
The only certifying agency is the government.
Yeah, right.
So we've invested millions of dollars into doing that.
Wow.
It's a whole new line of business for us.
Yeah. Okay.
We got several new customers now, which is exciting and not so exciting because they're new customers.
Yeah.
But also we've invested huge amounts of money in autonomy.
Okay.
From unmanned target systems to unmanned surface vehicles. These are our unmanned boats, and this is what the Navy gave us this big contract for. As well as AI and ML. And everybody's doing AI and ML. But, we've been doing...
What's the other one? AI and what?
Machine learning.
Oh, machine learning.
So we've been doing machine learning for 19 years. Just about everything that we do is tied to machine learning.
Okay.
Artificial intelligence, is there such a thing? I mean, I don't... It's the machine's doing the learning, which is creating the intelligence. So artificial intelligence is a good name for analysis.
Okay.
And results.
Super, yeah.
But it's cool. It'll be renamed something else in the next 3 or 4 years. But it's the same stuff we've been doing for 19 years.
Okay. All right.
We're really good at software. We're really good at hardware. We're looking at potentially, some acquisitions here in the next year or so. To bring in some talent for these programs and these contracts that we're winning.
Okay, wow, that impressive. And I usually ask my guests to define the word leadership in their own terms, but I think you just did that, and I think you did it very well because it's a broad scope of responsibility and accountability. And reliability, it's you have to be all these different things, given the situation that you're in, that you've placed yourself in.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that as leaders, we have to constantly be educating ourselves, because there's no one book,
right?
I mean, like the Bible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know the Bible pretty well, but also. The leadership, there is no book. I mean, your book's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Did
you hear that?
I've read it.
The book's great.
So go buy the book. It's a good read. It's an easy read.
Exactly. Yeah.
A lot of what you have in there is me. And I think it's just because you and I served.
For sure.
For sure. And I think serving is key to any young man or woman. You gotta have something to serve. Come on, I love my country.
Yeah.
Where else in the entire world could I go from working in the cotton fields at 12 years old to what I'm doing today?
It's incredible.
Only in this great country.
Yeah.
You could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, others will say no, but I mean, you don't know what the heck you're talking about because I've lived it.
Yeah.
And plus, you gotta constantly keep educating yourself. I mean, I got a PhD and I still want more.
For sure. Lifelong learning.
That's right.
It's a concept I write about.
Lifelong learning,
Yep.
always. And I learn from my employees. I learn from the folks that I work with. I learn from the kids that are involved in these robotics competitions and all the things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
I've read several leadership books, but I think probably one that's I really like to quote. It's called Radical Leap by Steve Farber. I've talked to Steve several times. And LEAP actually stands for something.
Okay.
So L is for love. Love for what you do and the people you do the stuff you do for. E is energy, and I know you mentioned that a lot in your book. Is constant energy. A is audaciousness.
Wow.
In order to be successful in any business, you have to be audacious.
Yep.
Different. But P is the key, and that's proof. Because if you have proof that L, E, and A are successful, then you keep doing it. And so every day I take that leap. There's some days I don't want to.
Yeah.
There's some days where I'm jazzed about it. But if you take that leap, that's what drives me.
Yeah.
And it's not about money.
Yeah. No.
No,
it's about this capability that you have. Like, why would I not do this thing that I'm potentially capable of? Why would I not try to do this cool thing that I'm capable, or I can organize the team, or I know how all these pieces fit together.
That's right. And I try to instill that into my my managers, my employees, and especially in my daughters. I have some badass twin daughters, Hope and Faith.
Yeah. 19 years old?
19 years old.
Okay.
One at UVA and one at William and Mary.
Cool.
And they're just some badass kids, and I tell them that.
Yeah.
And I tell them and I push them, as I should as their father.
For sure.
But not as a girl dad, but just as a father. Because my expectations of them, their expectations should be higher than my expectations. And that's what I keep telling them. And I know they'll be successful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And are they both on golf scholarships?
One is, and the other one isn't. Yeah,
okay.
So Faith at William and Mary, but we're big into golf.
Yeah.
We actually own a golf course, part of a golf course in Suffolk.
Okay, which one?
Cedar Point.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm on the board of directors there. We've done a lot of really great stuff out there. The girls have grown up out there.
Okay.
And I'm obviously big into golf. I have some wonderful relationships with several professional golfers and their foundations and the things we do.
Yeah.
Particular here in Virginia Beach, Mark Leishman and the Begin Again Foundation.
Okay.
Sepsis Awareness, which is big, really big foundation. We have a lot of really great events here locally in Virginia Beach. Another one is the Guns Guerin Memorial Foundation. Guns Guerin was a pilot in the Air Force. He tragically passed away. The foundation helps wounded warriors, active duty families in times of crisis. It's tied around golf.
Okay.
We have big events, big golfing events in Carolina, in Arizona, in Nevada, and just several other things like that. The Lanto Griffin Foundation. Lanto's a professional golfer.
Okay.
In the Blacksburg area to help youth, get into golf, to help them, get off the streets and things like that. But love golf. If I'm going to contribute, I like to contribute around golf.
That's cool.
Which is great.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense with me. I like to contribute around hockey.
That's right.
And on the ice. And we just had a big banquet last night, actually, for most of our contributors and discussion of new programming, super exciting stuff that's coming up. So I totally get what you're saying there.
So it's that love, from Leap. I love golf. I love being involved in things like that.
Yeah.
I love technology.
Clearly.
I think it's important because if you love what you do, you're going to do it better.
For sure.
But in order to get there, you have to have a plan.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, the plan was an accident. And the accident was a beautiful accident with the Navy, finding my way into simulation, and doing what it is that I'm doing today. I'm turning double nickels in a couple weeks, 55. Young man.
Young man.
It seems like just yesterday. that I was just getting started.
Yeah.
And I'm at the sort of the end of my career. See how long this goes. I love what I do, but we'll see.
Yeah. Do you see yourself at some point in the future transitioning to something different?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely. I mean, I love operating a company, but it's a young man's sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like in any. I mean, you see these older men or women still operating their company, and they're miserable
Yeah.
because of just the way things are, the way the work environment is. It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's never going to be the same. I don't think it's ever going to be the same. You know, I've embraced it. Some people haven't, so they're miserable.
Yeah, that's right. There's for me, and probably for you too, because we both served, there's this refresh, this reset. What's next? You know, been there, done that, and I mean that in a very positive and affectionate way. But now that prepared me for the next thing, and the next thing, and whatever that next thing is. And
I mean, I know that it's service related. I love being the president of the Hispanic Chamber. There's 300,000 Latinos in Hampton Roads.
Wow.
We need servant leadership
For sure.
You know, to help not just in the business community, but I think in the community at large. I think maybe that's where my future is going to be.
Okay.
You know, people are like, well, you know, Johnny, you should run for, you know, city council or for mayor or for something.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm that kind of I don't think I'm that kind of a leader.
And you know, elected officials and wonderful friends of mine on city councils, please don't take this the wrong way, but I think that you're way too energetic. You have way more to offer than to get bought. You're somebody who gets it done.
Yeah.
And on council and in politics,
that's what they tell me to.
Yeah, it's all about compromise, and it's all about being bogged down. It's not get it done in the best way possible. It's get it done, you know, maybe.
Yeah. So
That's
I mean,
not you.
I don't know. I mean, it's what am I going to do with my company? I mean, I think we'll keep it going. I don't know what my daughters want to do.
Yeah.
I know that Hope wants to be a surgeon. And to them, I'm not a real doctor, just play one on TV. And my other daughter also wants to be a physical therapist.
Okay.
So none of them want to do anything that we do.
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, they're just sophomores in college.
Yeah.
So
They'll find their own way.
We don't know what that is just yet.
Yeah.
We have this 10-year $1 billion contract. And then we have other, you know, several other contracts. Simus will grow. This is our growth year in 25.
Wow.
I don't really count employee number. I think it's more revenue
For sure.
And
Yeah,
profit
yeah.
and loss.
100%.
I would prefer to be a 30-person
$1 billion company.
$100 million company than, you know, a 700-person, you know, $30 million company.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
a big difference, you know. But we've positioned ourselves to be either one.
Yeah.
We have strategic relationships with large companies. We do a lot of that type of work, so it's exciting. The stuff we're doing in Suffolk is super exciting.
Do you have a board of directors?
I do. I have boards of advisors.
Okay.
Currently, right now, I have 6 owners in the group.
Okay.
I own 97% of the company. The other
Nice.
3% is key employees and key investors.
Okay.
I haven't taken a lot of investment money over the last 19 years. Very, very minimal. I may have to, based on the growth that we're looking at. We're doing potentially a $250 million project. I'll say that.
Okay.
In Suffolk over the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And we couldn't have done it. Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, we tried to do what it is we're doing in Suffolk. It just couldn't happen.
Yeah.
So it kind of set us back a couple of years, and a few $1 million. But we're still on track to get that done by 2028.
Wow.
In Suffolk, so it's exciting.
Yeah, it's growing out there.
And hopefully, in the next time you have me in, I'll be talking a little bit about what that is. It's very data driven. environment, autonomy environment. So it's rather exciting.
Okay. Speaking of that, so I got two other things I want to ask you. Talking about data. So we have cables coming in from Spain, I think one from South America, and there's a third one, right? Isn't there a third data cable coming from maybe France or somewhere? But, we hear, and even our mayor, Bobby Dyer, who's a good friend, and I think he's doing a good job. Yesterday at a chamber event, he mentioned, how these cables benefit our local economy. But how do these subsea cables, that one of them landing just a couple miles from where we're sitting here at I-5 Virginia Beach?
Three of them land from here.
Yeah.
And where those cables land now, I actually own the property right next to them. And I was putting a 200,000 square foot
transfer station? Or?
Well, no, it was going to be a data center, cable landing station to work with Telsius. We're partners in all this.
Okay. So what is the benefit to the community?
There's none.
Okay.
There is none. I mean, those are strategic cables specifically for the consortium that own those cables.
Right.
So, and they bypass all of Hampton Roads.
Yeah.
They go from here around Hampton Roads right up to Richmond and right into Ashburn.
Yeah.
Ashburn, so there really is no benefit.
Yeah.
I mean, Telsius, who operates the cables for the consortium. And the consortium is a number of companies that own those cables. And just so you know, one of those cables, multiple billions of dollars. So any new ones that are coming in, I don't see them in the foreseeable future, even though people say that. I'm heavily connected in that industry.
Okay.
And that's why
so not even data centers? Those things don't even generate a huge data center need locally?
There are none. There are no of those data centers that's what I've been trying to build over the last 7 years. And look, unfortunately, or let me say fortunately for us, the majority of our business in Hampton Roads is federally related.
For sure.
Defense related.
Yeah.
And guess what the Defense Department did 3 years ago? They awarded multiple billion-dollar contracts to Amazon, to Microsoft, to
Google.
Yeah. And so those three names that I mentioned, they're part of the consortium of that. But guess what? That data center is not, or that cable landing station data center is related to any federal opportunities in the area.
Wow.
Yeah. So it doesn't really benefit us. It's good for, bringing in businesses and all the other stuff.
Yeah, maybe some construction,
Kind of like the offshore wind stuff. I mean, that's
okay.
Sort of good.
Okay. Little like cottage industries will pop up?
Potentially. I mean, it's look, somebody needs to invest resources to build hyperscale data centers here locally for the local community. Because what's happening at that facility inside of the Telsius CLS completely bypasses Hampton Roads and goes up to QTS in Richmond and then up to Ashburn.
Yeah, up to Loudoun County, which is
right. And they're not allowed. They're not allowed to build any more in Loudoun County.
Okay.
So the idea for us is, look, what does Virginia Beach not have that Suffolk has? Access to power. What does Portsmouth not have that Suffolk has? Access to power. And I found out $10 million later that I can't get it. I can't get the mechanical systems I need, and I can build it all in Suffolk.
Wow.
So that's where we're headed.
Okay.
That's kind of what we're, and I say kind of technical term. That's what we're doing. There are some things that need to happen before all that stuff can be done. But by 2028, I believe we'll have a functioning ecosystem throughout Hampton Roads. I know the Southside Broadband Authority is being stood up. Our friends at GTS are trying to get that stood up with the Southside cities. I know there's a lot of push with what's happening in Jefferson Labs and those millions of dollars that are being put into that facility. But that doesn't really help the community. It helps Jefferson Labs.
Yeah, right.
But it doesn't really help the business community in Hampton Roads. And look, I tell it how it is.
Yeah, yeah.
If you see a spade, it's a spade.
Yeah, right.
We have to commercially invest in these infrastructures, and we're not. But they're expensive. I know.
Yeah.
Because I've invested millions and millions of dollars into it, and I'm still not close to putting a dent into it. And access to power is the key to all of this. Everybody says, oh, no, it's access to talent. The talent's there. You got to get the power from Dominion somehow to operate. Because the biggest part of these facilities is power.
For sure.
Cooling.
For sure. Power. Is this wind farm going to have any impact on that?
Not at all.
Yeah. Wow.
Not at all.
Nuclear would be probably the...
Come on. I mean, you know it.
Yeah,
I know it.
Yeah.
Most everybody knows this. I think it's a great idea to have clean energy.
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to do on offshore wind is great, but it doesn't solve our problem.
Right.
Especially not in Virginia Beach.
Right. Actually, kind of creates a few more as well.
It does.
Yeah.
But we've been living on nuclear power for years.
Yeah.
I mean, look at these wonderful ships that we build. Might take us a long time to build them, but they have been sustainable for years.
Yeah. Decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
And why can't we take what we're doing out? Come on, if you haven't been in the Navy and see how wonderful our systems are out there, we could do that on land.
Yeah, for sure.
And provide power at much less cost than what we're doing with offshore wind.
Yeah, much less cost, much less space.
Yeah.
All the resources that go into things like that.
I mean, the research in it is amazing. But we got to try and do what we can, and plus, it takes too long to do anything nowadays.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Trump is trying to have a positive impact on that as well.
I think so too. I mean, I think when it comes to like construction projects, road projects, all these things, why does it take so long?
Bureaucracy.
I married my wife in 1989, and they were doing construction on 64 to Williamsburg. 35 years later, they're still doing construction.
That's right.
On I-64 to Richmond.
That's right.
35 years.
Yeah.
It's our taxpayers. It's our tax dollars.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Wow.
Just an example. 35
now,
years.
it's a good example. The gap, they call it, the final 29 miles, right?
Yeah.
And
35 years later.
Yeah, 35 years later. But it's going to be nice when it's done. I can't wait.
Be.
So and a lot of that has to do with the bridge tunnel that's being expanded and the expansion of the port and a whole nother economic component of our great Hampton Roads.
35 years, come on.
Yeah, cool. Dr. Johnny Garcia, fascinating discussion. What haven't I asked you? What else is there to share?
No, man, we've talked about everything.
We hit it all.
You didn't ask me what my handicap was. I mean,
that's because I know your scratcher better. So.
Yeah. But no, this was good. Good.
Yeah.
It was just like us boys hanging out. That's great.
That's it.
Good, yeah.
Minus cocktails.
Congratulations to you on your book.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you on your business.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And your success.
Thank you. Thanks for supporting my business. I know you've been here many times over the years.
Yeah.
You've attended some of our leadership development.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the support across the board.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Great to see you, Johnny. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast. To contact Bob directly or to learn more about how Bob can advance you and your organization through leadership training, team building, executive coaching, and public speaking, visit robertpizzini.com. Robert, Pizzini.com, and connect with him on LinkedIn.